Let's check the first alert forecast.
All right, sounds pretty good. Not too bad.
Not too bad.
The weekend, would love for you to switch it, but
yeah,
can things change?
Things can change.
Okay,
absolutely.
I like that. Well, when a couple wants to change and start a family, some unexpected struggles with infertility can bring heartbreak.
Yeah, adoption can be a great option, but it can also it can come with struggles mentally to get ready for the process. Nicole Witt, the executive director of the Adoption Consultancy, is here with some advice for parents-to-be. Good morning, Nicole. How are you?
Great. How are you? Good morning.
I think this is just such an excellent topic, and I'm so glad you're an advocate for this. Tell us a little bit about the history of your company and how you got started.
Well, I went through the infertility process myself. And, at the time, my husband and I didn't really give adoption as probably good of a look as we should have, because we believed a lot of the myths about it that a lot of people believe. And when I started doing a lot of volunteer work in the infertility and family building space, I learned that so many of those myths are just not true, and that people really need to understand what a great option it can be. So that's what ultimately led me down this path.
And what are some of those myths, Nicole?
Well, one of the big myths is that it takes years, right, to adopt a healthy baby that kind of meets the various parameters you might have. And it doesn't need to. There are ways to be a lot more proactive in the process. Most of our clients adopt within about 3 to 12 months. And then another big myth, which scares people off a lot, is that the birth parents could come back and just sort of show up on your doorstep, and take the child back. And that's not true. If everything is done perfectly legally and with reputable sources, that once the adoption is finalized, that just can't happen.
I love how you say legally and with reputable sources. What are some of those reputable sources?
Well, there are a lot of disreputable sources out there that people can find, online and so on. So the key thing is just working with agencies and attorneys and home study providers. And I'm a consultant, other adoption professionals that have, been around for a long time, that are licensed and have, great reputations and good reviews. You don't want to sort of be a trailblazer, with a brand new space with no reputation on something this important.
Now, when we're talking about IVF, there is so much stress, not only mentally, physically. It's very taxing for couples, as you know, to go through that. At what point, would you say it would be wise to start opening yourself up for adoption?
I think that's a great question, because what happens is that people often sort of go through the whole IVF process and they come to the point where it may not work for them. And at that point, they're kind of tapped out, right? Financially, emotionally, and it's really hard for them at that point to start the adoption process. So it is something I think that should kind of be in the mix earlier on for people to start thinking about. Is that possibly a good fit for them? And if so, might they want to try shifting gears a little bit sooner, before they are feeling so burned out with the whole process? That could really serve them well. So just when you're considering your options, putting them all on the table right from the beginning and thinking about if and when the different options might be a good fit for you can really help people in the long run.
I don't really know too much about this subject, so you're going to have to educate me. Is it an expensive process to adopt? I know IVF is very expensive, but is it an expensive process to adopt a child?
It certainly can be. The exception being if you adopt out of the foster care system, that's free or virtually free. But doing a private adoption of a newborn or doing an international adoption, unfortunately, is very expensive, often more than $50,000.
Oh, wow.
However, there are ways to help with that. There's a $17,000 dollar for dollar tax credit. There are loans and grants and employer assistance, but it is an expensive process.
Wow.
And not only, financially, but what are some of the differences that people explore going the private route with adoption?
Well, the most important thing to decide up front is which route you want to choose. So with private, you've got domestic adoption or international are really your two big choices. And then within domestic, there are different ways to do it. Do you want to sign up with one agency? Do you want to sign up with an attorney? Or do you want to sign up with several places? That's kind of the approach we have our clients take, so that they have as many opportunities as possible. But making those decisions up front are really important, because that's going to affect which steps you take and in which order you take them.
I think it's incredible that you're going to go more in depth on this, because I think it's a really terrific subject.
Yeah, I think adoption is something that, not everyone really considers sometimes. That, there is that psychological pull of wanting to have your own, biological child. But I mean, we have DCF on our show all the time, Nicole, and the amount of difference that you can make in a child's life
100%.
and what they can add to your family is just like priceless. It feels so.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You do such amazing work, and I do look forward to talking with you. You're going to be joining me for my Mommyhood Unscripted podcast, where, as Scott mentioned, we will go more in depth, so make sure to look for that episode. But we do have a new episode that just posted this morning, and it's all about perimenopause and menopause. Ladies, you don't have to suffer through it like our mothers and grandmothers and all the women before us. There are things that you can do, so make sure to check that out. You can find that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts.
All right. Thanks, Nicole. Hey, Marcy.